Welcome to Ready to be Romanced. I'm Tori,
And I'm Robin.
and today we're discussing Fall
Fall
Into
into
You.
you.
Robin, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here. I'm calling in today from New Westminster, BC. I live out here. I love it so much. I've lived in BC for about 10 years, and I used to live on the island for a couple of those years. And that's one of the ways that Tori and I really got connected. And the first time I was on the pod, it was actually in Victoria, and we talked a lot about Bachelorette. And I would say I'm still watching just about as much Bachelorette as I was then. So
I love that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you kept yes, you did continue to watch.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
still keeping up. I would say I don't maybe watch as many episodes, but I'm still up to date. I'm watching the recap videos, I'm following them on their socials, and I'm really
Yeah.
just obsessed with the Golden Bachelorette right now because the men on that season are just so pure and it's very nice. So, big fan.
I love that. And you are really part of the RTBP, no, the RTBR universe
Yeah.
because Mason is your husband and Megan is one of your best
That's
friends.
true. Yes. So I have heard about the experience of being on the pod, and I know that they thought it was so much fun. So I was very honored to be invited on. So thank you for having me.
Oh my God, I'm excited. I know this, but tell the listeners, are you a big romance reader?
Okay, this is a great question. And I would say that I used to be very much into nonfiction. Like that's what I was mostly reading a few years ago. But I recently got a Kobo and I have kind of gotten back into reading. It kind of fell off for me a little bit just overall. I wasn't doing it as much. And since I had this to be able to take wherever with me, I've definitely been reading more. And I've been doing lots of reading for school recently, but I started downloading a few romance novels and just devouring them. I think it's just nice to have a really easy read, something that's very fun and light. And so I've been getting into that. The one thing that I feel like I need to say on this pod, because it's very much about the romance books, is everyone that I know, or most people that I know who are into reading romance, love series like, ACOTAR or Fourth Wing or whatever, those ones with fairies and all of that. And I generally love fantasy. Like I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd, but I for some reason cannot get into that
That's
type of romance book. Like
that's so funny.
I read the first book in A Court of Thorns and Roses to like 80%, and then I put it down and I just like couldn't, I just didn't finish it. I don't know. I just need it to be grounded in the real world or something. I'm just like, who are they talking about? What is this? I don't know. So I'm sorry to all of you who will try to get bored with
Yeah.
those. My friends have been working on it for years and it's still not happening. But I have found that I really enjoy these types of novels that we're talking about today.
Yeah, so some contemporary romance novels.
Yeah.
That is so funny. But I famously also, the first time I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, paused at the 80% mark for like 6 months. And then my friend, it was either Megan or Courtney, and they were like, you need to finish, like, you need to just like actually finish it.
Yeah.
And so I get that. It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah. And I think with like a lot of those series, like what I hear repeatedly is like you have to read the second book or you have to like get through it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm not getting all the info in the first one, I just can't be bothered. Like I don't have the patience for that.
That is so fair. And like that's I think the best part of romance is like everyone can find their own like subgenre to really like cuz it's so diverse.
Yeah, definitely. It's very fun. And I really liked, the trope here, which is brother's best friend, which is very fun. I'm a
Yes.
big fan of that.
Yes.
I definitely love a little, grumpy sunshine. There's a couple other series that I've read that I really just I feel like I can get into it and I'm like, I know some of it is silly and lighthearted, and that's what makes it work well for me.
Totally. I actually don't know this. You have siblings but you don't have a brother, right?
I do have a brother. I have an older brother. Yeah.
Did you ever have a crush on one of his friends?
That's a good question. So he's 5.5 years older, so like a pretty big age gap. And I would say that I don't know. I don't feel like I ever have like I don't know that there's someone that I was like really, really into that he was friends with. Probably like a little bit of a schoolgirl crush when we were younger, but I don't know if I would consider this person to be my brother's best friend more so than just my neighbor. Friends with my brother, So it's like, I don't know. But the concept is great.
I really like the concept too. And it's funny, like, I don't have a brother, but I think, yeah, it's just a cute concept for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's, I think, dive into the book. So, spoiler warning, we're going to be discussing Fall Into You, and just a brief content warning that we will be, again, briefly mentioning. We won't get into like the nitty gritty, but there will be discussion about death of a parent. So, the book was written by Caroline Frank. Have you read any of her other books?
I don't think so, but I saw that there's another one coming out, which I'm sure we'll talk about towards the end here. And I would read another one. I thought the writing was, well, we'll get into that, but I thought the writing was decent enough that I'm like, I could read another book from her.
Yeah, no, totally, me too. And it was published January 1st, 2021. I just want to, before we like start the recap, like what were your like just off the top thoughts about this book? Because we were DMing about this
Yeah.
and like LOLing about some things.
Yeah, so I ended up reading this book on the plane to and from California, where I was a couple weekends ago. And I went through it so fast. Like it did not take me very long to get through. So I appreciated that. I would say I had a lot of feelings as I was reading it. Mason was, of course, with me on this trip. And at one point, we're in the bar at the airport on our way back, and I'm close to the end. And I'm just like, I cannot believe that this man is doing this. Like, I had a lot of feelings about it. And he was like, save it for the pod. Don't tell me.
Oh my
um,
God.
yeah, so lots of feelings. I would say this, it's kind of mid-tier, but it brought a lot out of me. So I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad, but the one thing that was really working for me right now while reading it, I mean, we're recording this on October 4th. So it's starting to be fall, and we actually changed what we were planning to read together because I had seen some of these fall themed books, and you were so gracious to change and read something different. But I'm now thinking about what other fall themed romances I might like to read because it just feels like it gets you in the spirit of things.
100%. I have actually never like themed my reading according to the season. And that I thought was like game changer. Like I loved when they like went to the pumpkin patch
Yeah.
and like they were just like in cozy like sweaters and stuff like that. I that like made the entire book for me.
Yeah, it just felt correct. And I'm ready for the other one we talked about reading is Pumpkin Spice Cafe. And I will
Yeah.
absolutely be reading that. And I've been thinking about, I know that hockey romances are big right now, and I haven't actually gotten into that yet, but I feel like November, December is the perfect time for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like that. And this book like I actually like really liked like the first three quarters. It was just the ending that was like a little nuts. Like I actually
It was crazy at the end.
like it was a huge like I was shocked.
Yeah.
Like I was like fully shocked. Let's save the spoiler
Yeah.
for like the end of the episode, but like I actually was like I gasped.
Yes.
I just did not see that happening at all. So I really liked the first like little bit. I wish the ending was like a little bit tweaked, but
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
we
that's the
can
part like
discuss
towards
that.
the end where it goes off the rails. That's where I was like in the airport bar being like, what the frick is going on
No,
here?
like
Like,
I truly was like screaming. Like
yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally was like
Like,
I was like
what?
I need to talk to someone about this. Like I was like this is insane. So our main character is Liza, and she's a psychology grad student living in New York. And we meet her getting dumped by her fiance, Jeremy, who is a professor. And I love books that start with a dumping. I don't know why, but I do.
This is the first time I've ever read one with that being the start. And I was just like, oh, wow, we're really jumping right in here. And now we know who the enemy is. So that's great.
Totally. Yeah. We immediately have the enemy and we're like immediately rooting for Liza.
Yeah.
And he also reveals to her that he's seen someone else. So not only is he dumping her, but he was cheating on her.
And they were engaged.
They were engaged. I know, that's
Wow.
so brutal. But she like realizes like very quickly, like even when he is saying the words, that she's like kind of relieved because her heart just like wasn't in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those perfect from the outside sort of relationships, like checks the boxes, but there's nothing really under the surface.
Totally. And so she heads to Long Island, I believe, where she grew up. And she's telling her brother, Vinny, who's a doctor, about the breakup. They're at their family home. Their dad had recently died. And so it's the mom, Liza, Vinny, Danielle, who is Vinny's wife, and their two kids. And they're like a big Italian family making dinner. And Vinny's kind of like, you're going to just like take this one on the chin because I don't think that he was like your soulmate.
I think he actually says, I don't know that you've ever been in love or something to that effect. Like it's a pretty big accusation to make. But also she's like, maybe you're right.
That would be such a, like, I would be like, okay, well, I can't come to dinner now
Yeah.
because I'm going to go like, yeah, I'm going to go cry and like have a midlife crisis. But like, thanks, Vinny.
Thanks so much. That's such a brother move, though, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like see them like tossing like their Caesar salad or whatever, like getting the cups down from the cupboard. And he's just like, yeah, so I don't think you've ever been in love.
Yeah. Also,
Nuts.
food is a big theme in this book. I feel like there's a lot of discussion about what they're eating, the preparation, which I guess makes sense. They're like playing into some of these Italian, like New York Italian stereotypes. But I was appreciative of that because I'm like, ooh, Thanksgiving food. Like, this is great.
No, I loved it. Did you see at the end of the book there was like family recipes?
Yeah. Maybe we can try
Yeah.
to make one. Have fun.
Yeah, that would be fun podcast content, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Vinny tells Liza that he's invited his friend for dinner at the last minute, and it's Matt, which is his old roommate that Liza had a crush on but hasn't seen in 6 years. And I really thought, I was like, oh, that, like, Vinny's trying to set Liza up with Matt. Like, this makes
Yeah,
total sense.
of course.
But no.
But that is
Like,
not the case.
no, it's literally the opposite.
It is.
And Matt doesn't remember Liza.
No, he does not remember meeting her.
Yeah. Did you like, it was 6 years ago. Like, what did you think of that? Like, did you think, I was kind of like, that's kind of like bad. Like,
Yeah, I don't love it, especially because a little later on we find out more about that interaction. And it's not even like she was just there picking up her brother from wherever they were living or whatever, but she was there and he like bought her like McDonald's or something to cheer her up because she was sad. And it's like you had a full-on conversation with this person and it's your best friend's sister. Like, how do you not remember? I don't know. It seemed confusing to me.
because I like didn't want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but then I was like, okay, well, guys are like typically guys don't talk about anything about their actual lives.
Yeah,
So I was like, maybe he just like truly hasn't put two and two together.
maybe.
And we learned that Matt was like a big partier
Hmm.
in college and he slept around. But now he is on the straight and narrow. He cycles, he meditates, and he's a big time cardiology doctor.
So fancy. He's really changed his ways.
I know, I know. I was like, I kind of want to see Party Matt.
We needed him to come out a little bit more throughout the story, but he's pretty straight edge, honestly.
Totally. This whole book was very wholesome and straight edge.
Yeah.
And his dad died of a heart attack. So Vinny, Matt, and Liza all have that in common, that they lost their dads. And they're like, so he arrives, this is like best case scenario because she gets thrown up on by one of the kids,
Yeah.
but that allows her to go shower and blow dry her hair. I'm like, this is, I could just like imagine, because she sees him and she's like, oh my God, he's still like stunning.
Yeah.
And this is like the perfect excuse for me to look really good when we get to interact.
Yeah, she like changes her outfit and like makes her hair all perfect and puts perfume on and stuff. It's like, okay, she's committed at this point to at least making an impression.
Yeah. And he is like immediately into her.
Yeah, which I think we need to talk about that also.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. No, 100%. When you realize that this book takes place over the course of 6 weeks.
Crazy. Like, who falls this quickly? I don't know. I don't know, but we'll get there. I think that afternoon they go to the pumpkin patch with like the kids, right?
Right, right. So I
But
guess
I'm
it was
pretty sure that
lunch that they were
Danielle
making.
stays back. So it's just Matt, Vinny, Liza, and then the two kids that go.
And they are feeling each other so much that Matt winks at her in like the rear view mirror in the car.
A bold move. Because they've barely
I
talked at this point. They've literally said like hello to each other, and then they've gotten in the car and he's already making eyes at her.
Has a guy ever winked at you and that's been like successful?
I can't think of any times that has happened. No. I would probably just recoil.
No, me too. Like, unless it was like Jacob Elordi or something like
Okay,
that.
sure.
Like,
There's always an exception.
I was out at a bar this weekend because it was my sister's bachelorette, and a guy winked at me, and I literally like turned around and was like, "Oh!" I was like, "Oh my God!"
I'm
Like,
physically repulsed by that. Yeah.
there's just something about a wink that seems so like schmarmy. Like,
Yes.
ugh.
Yeah, agreed. So a weird start for them, but she seems to be into it.
Yeah, she was hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
And Vinny immediately catches Matt kind of checking Liza out when they're getting out of the car. And he's like, no. He's like, don't ever do that again.
He makes it pretty clear that that's not okay with him right from the get-go.
They are having a really cute day. They're drinking cider. They're eating donuts. They're doing hay rides. If it wasn't for those pesky little kids that like wanted to go home, they would have had like, I don't know, like the perfect first date.
Yeah, yeah, but they were taking care of the one kid because Vinny, well, we get there, right? But Vinny has to end up leaving them there with just the little boy because the little girl is sick still and he takes her back. So then they have this perfect little family moment where it's the two of them, this cute little kid running around, and Matt gets to show off what it would be like to, watch him as a dad potentially. And I think she talks in this part about her ovaries exploding, which I'm always just like, of course they were.
No, I know. That's so funny. And I actually don't think this happened, but yeah, they take a picture, like someone takes a picture of their little group.
Yes.
And I don't think they commented this, but it's so classic for them to be like, you and your kid and like your husband are so cute. And then
They do say that. They're like,
Oh, they
the
do?
family is so nice. And they're like, we're not together.
Yeah, like, oh no, this is just my friend.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. I probably just blanked that out because it's like, you just know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, like, of course.
Nearing the end of their date, he almost asks her out, but Vinny gets back from dropping off the girl and is picking them up and interrupts them. And he's like clearly super angry. He can tell what's going on. And because he has this image of Matt in his head, he doesn't want him to date his sister.
Right. Because he still sees Matt as this like undergrad student who's sleeping around and partying all the time. And he does not recognize that he's now a grown up with a job and that he meditates, He's a different guy now.
He is. I really felt like in this whole book that people were not giving him the benefit of the doubt at all.
Agreed. He's like always on the defensive here. Like, no, and actually, yes, every single character except Danielle. Danielle's the only person I think that really gives him the benefit of the doubt the whole time.
Yeah.
but everyone else, not so much.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you guys, he's a cardiology doctor.
Yeah.
That's like obviously super serious. And it like that's a big wig job in New York. Like, I guess maybe they might think he's like a womanizer, but it's like, it's not like he's like going out getting drunk every night. Like,
And also, this is a theme for me here, but like, actually, what business is it of Vinny's who his sister chooses to date? Like, she can actually make a decision for herself. She's met him before, she knows his history, and she could simply decide on her own if that's okay with her or not, if she wants to like trust this or not.
100%. This is the part of the trope that I don't love is when it's like a super overprotective brother.
Yeah, which this kind of takes to the extreme.
To the extreme. Because, like, I think it's fair to be protective of your siblings.
Yeah.
Like, I remember my little sister dated one of my residents in undergrad, and like because I saw him as a resident, I didn't like love that.
Yeah.
And so it's like you could say your piece, but then you got to move on and let them make
Yeah.
their own decision.
Exactly. Yeah. It's okay to give that warning or be like, here's what I know about this person. Do with that what you will. But that's not the approach
Totally.
that Vinny takes.
And so Matt is like, okay, like obviously I can't do anything. Vinny's my friend. So for the rest of the evening, it's really awkward and he doesn't really talk to her.
Mhm.
But she can't sleep. And this is so funny just because, again, I feel like this is another like micro trope. And it's like, if I couldn't sleep, I'm not going on a like 5K run.
Seriously, who's doing that? I don't know.
And I don't know anybody that would do that. But Liza takes a run. And then when she returns back home, she bumps into Matt because he got a call from one of his patients. And he basically straight up tells her, like, I was going to ask you out, but Vinny doesn't want me to. And she hints that she has brunch every Saturday at a specific time and place and that he could run into her.
Yeah, which it's a good little workaround.
It's a good workaround for sure. But I was just like, would your argument hold up in the court of Vinny? Like,
Clearly not.
yeah. So flash forward to Saturday and it's brunch and Liza shows up with Vinny because Matt and her never exchanged phone numbers because again they needed to be the innocent parties. So she couldn't warn him that Vinny wanted to spend a Saturday with her.
Yeah.
And they have to do this whole ruse that they just
He
bumped
just
into each
happened
other.
to be there, just a surprise. And Vinny buys it for some reason.
I know, because wouldn't you know that this is your sister's like local and be like, why the fuck are you here? Like,
Yeah. It's very odd that Vinny's just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that you would be here. Like, no problem.
Liza, because she had recently moved because of the broken engagement, she has a bunch of IKEA furniture to build. So, what do you know? Matt can help her out with that.
Yes, because Vinny gets called away to do something else. So he has to leave them together. And Matt's like, no problem. I'll step in. I'll help you out. And then, of course, he goes and builds everything, including a bed.
Yeah, I kind of liked that when he was like he unknowingly like built a bed for us. Robin's rolling her
Yeah.
eyes.
It's cute, I guess.
No, it's cringy. I get
It's
it.
very nice. We love people who are building furniture for us. That's great. I'm happy
Yeah.
for her.
And at one point he puts on Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones and they like slow dance. And she starts to cry because it's the song that she wanted like her first dance to be.
Yeah.
She's sad that her dad won't get to meet Matt. And he like starts to like kind of like he like kisses her neck and stuff like that. And she just panics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad for her at this point. I feel like even if you weren't into the engagement, if this is happening like a week after, it would just be like
I mean, her emotions
hectic.
would be all over the place. And I mean, I feel like there's some stuff in this book that's a little heavy-handed. Like with this moment, she's also thinking about how like she had suggested this song to Jeremy, her ex-fiance, and he was like, that's a terrible first dance song, like really shut her down for it. And then Matt happens to choose this specific song to put on for them at like in the first time that they're hanging out. And it's just like, it's meant to be. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, okay.
It's a little too on the nose. I
Yeah.
feel you're right. Like I feel like if that was maybe like a one-off in this book, but I feel like they did that like 100 times.
There's so many of them. It's like
Yeah.
we know they're gonna fall in love. It's a romance novel.
And it's so funny because she's like, I'll take you out for dinner after this. And he expects for them to go to an Italian restaurant, but they go to like a German restaurant. And he's like, she's so quirky. Like, I
Yes.
didn't know we would be out for like schnitzel or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny. Oh my God. So they decide to continue seeing each other and that they would just reevaluate on December 1st if they should tell Vinny or not, just to see if they should even give this a chance. And while they're at the restaurant, Jeremy arrives with his girlfriend that he was cheating on Liza with. Matt then pretends that Liza is his girlfriend in front of him.
It really jumps right in there, which is great for Liza because this was also one of the restaurants that she and Jeremy agreed Jeremy would no longer attend because it's one of her favorites. And so then he's there bringing his new girlfriend. So really, he deserves to get kicked out of this place. And I loved this for Matt being there and just being like, actually, yeah, I'm her boyfriend.
Yeah, I did too, because Jeremy deserves like a taste of his own medicine.
Yeah.
And he walks her home after dinner and she goes to kiss him, but he like kind of avoids her. And then like she like runs into her apartment, slams the door, but he like knocks and he's like, no, like it's not that I didn't want to kiss you. I just like, he's like, I got nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think about that?
Um, I guess it kind of built up the tension a little bit. I don't know that I believe that he would be that nervous to kiss her, especially because they've had like this slow dance already. He already did kind of like he was kissing on her, just they didn't like have a first kiss, in quotations there. But yeah, I don't know. Don't know if it checked out for me. What'd you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. I was like, maybe there'd be a lot of pressure because you really like this girl, but I'm like, with your like dating history, it seems like you wouldn't like have like a problem.
Like he's gonna be fine. He knows how to kiss.
Yeah, exactly. And they start hooking up, and he's like, okay, we need to like slow down. Let's take a shower just to like cool off for a second. So they go and they're about to get into the shower, and she realizes that she's lost her necklace, this necklace that she wears every day because it was given to her from her dad. She sees this as a sign to actually stop dating Matt.
Literally, she's like, my necklace is gone and I must end this. This is obviously a sign from the universe. Bye.
Yeah, she's like so superstitious because she thought her dad really liked Jeremy, and I guess like her father's approval, obviously, and her brother's approval means a lot to her. And she saw this as a sign the heavens were intervening and that they shouldn't date.
Yes. And he is so thoughtful and sweet, and he like helps her search for it for hours. They like retrace their steps, like all this stuff. Eventually, like go to sleep, and then he like leaves in the morning. But he really goes above and beyond for finding it.
Yeah, like he's like going outside in like
Yeah.
the cold and stuff like that. Like yeah, truly cares that she is okay.
Mhm.
But her friend Barbara talks some sense into her and is like, no, you can't ghost this man. Invite him to my Halloween party that's not a Halloween party, but an NYC icons party. Who would you dress up as for an NYC icons party?
That's a good question. I'm actually going to New York at Christmas this year, and I'm so excited and
Love.
to do some research on the icons. I low-key want to say the Eiffel Tower. Oh my God.
No, the Empire State
Empire
Building.
State Building.
Yeah.
Imagine that's the icon I choose. You're in the wrong city, bitch.
That's so funny. The Empire State, yeah, the Statue of Liberty, like
Statue of Liberty,
those.
like one of those, I think would be funny because everyone else is going to choose like a human, and I just think it'd be funny to be a building.
Yeah, I liked that Matt went the like mob boss,
Yeah,
like Tony Soprano. I thought that that was cute, and she was dressed up as Carrie Bradshaw. Like, yeah, I think
that,
Sex in the
that's
City
fun.
would be obviously a really good. I'm trying to think. Like there's so many New York icons, but
Yeah, who would you go as? Do you think?
yeah, I do think Charlotte from Sex in the City would be really
Mhm.
fun, and maybe like a little bit more like it sucks when Halloween costumes aren't recognizable like immediately. I feel like there's so many places and I'm just like blanking.
There's a lot of
Or a
options.
lot of people.
Yeah.
I'll mull. I think like yeah, like maybe someone from Broadway would be fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. They head to the party. What do you know? They have another run in with an ex. Matt's ex, Kelly, is there, and Kelly and Liza went to high school together. He was recently seeing her. That's how he
Mhm.
actually ended up on Long Island for him to get invited over to Vinny's house. She's really upset because it was like her kind of like high school bully. And she's like, if you like these types of girls, why are you dating me?
Mhm.
And so she storms out and he goes to find her and he explains the situation. I feel like he's always explaining something to her. Like,
Can I just say, on the topic of Matt always have never having the benefit of the doubt, um,
yes.
he sees Kelly's hand on his arm for like zero point 0.2 seconds and is like, oh my God, he's getting back like panic mode instead of just simply waiting for a moment to see what's going on. And like, yeah, she literally leaves him at her friend's house party that she brought him to without saying anything. It's weird behavior. Like if I were mad, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, why are you why are you acting like a child here? Like this is an ex. It's uncomfortable, but I think she also knows at this point that when he was recently seeing Kelly, he turned her down and was like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Like, I'm not interested. And so I don't know. It just seems weird to me that she's so over the top about it.
Couldn't agree more. She freaks out and it's like, has Matt done anything up until this point to like think that he would do something like that? Like he's been nothing but a gentleman. And I just hate when books make me side with the guy.
Yes. So
Like
why am I cheering for this man? Like, let me be on the girl's side.
literally. Like I just was like, I cannot believe I'm like I think Matt should dump Liza at
Yeah.
this point. Like and be like, hey, that's like kind of unfair.
Yeah.
But he's like, I get that you're like scared. And she's like, yeah, like just because of your history, but they make up and they start hooking up, and this is like true like again another sign. She didn't take this as a sign from God, but they start hooking up and they realize that neither of them have condoms because neither of them wanted to be presumptuous.
That's stupid. That's poor planning on both of their parts.
Really poor. I'm like, I don't think it's presumptuous. I think it's being prepared.
Yeah. You're not
Yeah,
assuming anything's going to happen, but just in case.
totally. And I was like, also, guys, just like Postmates. Like, you live in New
Yes.
York. Like,
Yeah. Like you
run
must be
down
like
to the
2 blocks
bodega.
from a, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Make him go
Yeah,
outside in the cold and get it. And then if you still want to have sex when he gets back, then great.
exactly. But they do this very common romance trope where both of the main characters go, well, I've been tested recently, and you've been tested recently, and we're not hooking up with other people, so we can
It's
go
fine.
condomless. Which, like, did this? I feel like it's fine if we spoil. At this point, I'm sure people have read the book. But did you think at all that this was going to lead to a child?
I truly did not. I was just like, okay, they just don't care. And this is just like an extra bit of detail that I don't need. And so whatever. But I did not see that coming.
Me neither. Like, I did not see this as the clue that it was because I just, again, assumed that she was on birth control. That's why she
Yeah.
was okay. Like, that she'd be protected from STIs and pregnancy, but she wasn't.
No, she just raw dogging it. Goodbye. Like, who cares? So weird. And like,
Insane.
she should have told him that she's not on birth control. Like, I mean, she could have asked. I don't know.
100%.
There's a lot in this interaction that could have been done differently by both parties. Very confusing.
100%. Yeah, I definitely think that she should have said something. He could have asked as well, like he's the doctor, and like she didn't even mention like getting a plan B or anything. And the next day I was shook to my core.
Yeah.
And they wake up and Matt's like, I'm in love with her. Which brings us back to your main gripe and grumble. That's just they fall in love way too
It
fast.
just makes no sense. Like they barely know each other, and he's just like ready to throw everything away for her. And she's a little trepidatious at the beginning. She's kind of cautious and she's not sure if she wants to like jump right in, which is why she's got that deadline that they're kind of thinking about. But it's just the way they talk about each other in the each POV that I'm like, really? You're that obsessed already? It just feels like
Yeah.
they're kind of love bombing themselves about each other.
I also just think again, like her dad recently died. She broke off an engagement. She had to move. She's in grad school, which is like very stressful. Like there's just like a lot going on. And I think also maybe it would have been different because we get some like time jumps here where they're hanging out every night, but we don't get to see that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe if we got to see that, it would be a little bit more realistic. But I was like, so far, every interaction that you've had has been like surface level chit chat or hooking up.
Yeah, but and then even with the hanging out every night, like they talk about how they're just like ordering in and like watching TV and stuff like that. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, hey, I love to veg on the couch as much as the next person. But at the beginning of the relationship, doesn't it seem like they would want to, I don't know, even if they don't want to go out because they don't want to be spotted or whatever, they could still do something a little bit more get to know you than watching whatever reality show they were watching.
Yeah, New York is like, I'm assuming they lived in Manhattan because they kept referencing like driving in from the city and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
Manhattan is huge. Go to a dive bar in a different neighborhood
Yeah.
than than where your friends hang out.
So weird.
Yeah, they wake up, they start hooking up again, but there's a knock at the door and it's Vinny and his family. And Liza forgets that she had plans with them. And so she tells Matt to hide, and he hides in her closet. And because the family hasn't seen her new apartment, she's like touring them around, trying to avoid going into her bedroom. But Danielle sees him in the closet, and she promises to keep the secret.
Danielle is a real one throughout this whole book. She really facilitates them being together because multiple times she sees stuff and then like, I won't tell my husband, don't worry. I don't know.
Honestly, Danielle and Vinny, I would be down to read their book.
Yeah, me too. I like their relationship. It's interesting. Although I'm not sure if I want to like Vinny because
Yes, yeah. I feel like we need some redeeming Vinny storylines at
yeah,
this point.
we do. We do.
And so they like coast is clear, they don't get caught, but they don't like lying and they don't like being in that kind of situation. And as we just mentioned, a few weeks pass and they're hanging out every night. They decide it's a good night to go to one of Matt's work events. And because she still has not found her necklace before they go out to the event, he gives her a necklace to replace her dad's.
Which he had custom made by his mother, who is a jeweler, and he's also kind of like estranged from her.
Yes.
Um, I just wanted to say that this moment was probably my first like, okay, this is a lot for me. I was expecting at some point for there to be a replacement necklace. I was like, I kind of saw that in the future here, but I thought this was going to be at the end of the book, like as a
Yeah.
like, another declaration of love before they decide to talk to Vinny, whatever. Like, this is so fast. They just started getting together, and he went to lengths to get this thing for her. And I also
Yeah.
thought that her reaction would be different. Like, once I realized what was happening, and they had just talked about how she's like nervous to get into this, I thought she was going to be like, whoa, this is way too much. Like, I appreciate it, but this is over the top, and that was going to be like an issue that they had to deal with. But instead, she's just
No.
like, wow, I love it so much. And then they go on their merry way. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like you said, this seems like love bombing, like buying a very extravagant gift in the first couple weeks. Because I was doing the math, and I think they met a week before Halloween at the
Mm-hmm.
pumpkin patch. And so that puts us at like September or October 23rd, let's say. And then the next event after this is Thanksgiving. So that brings us to end of November for American
Yes.
Thanksgiving. And then they have Christmas. So that's like, that truly is like the span of maybe the whole book is 10 weeks, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at this point, we're at like the 1 month mark, if
Yeah. Like
that.
3 weeks, something like that.
Three
It's
weeks.
very fast.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, he gives her the necklace, and she accepts it graciously, which is nice.
Yes, she does. And at the work event, they're having a good time. They both want to say I love you to each other. Again, insanity.
Bug.
Because I was like, I actually thought if they didn't use like the love word, like if they just said how obsessed they are with, like, I think
Yeah.
that that's normal at the beginning
Yes.
of a relationship, that kind of infatuation.
Hmm.
But I wish it just kind of stayed at that
Hmm.
level. But they bump into one of Vinny's colleagues, and Liza's in the bathroom at the time. So Matt's talking with him, and then she bumps into both of them, and she has to pretend to meet Matt for the first time.
He really does not like that. That really pisses him off.
Fair enough. Like,
Yeah.
and like also she says like, oh, I'm dating someone here, and I don't want you to tell Vinny. Why didn't she just say, yeah, I'm dating Matt. Could you not tell Vinny? This is new.
Yeah. I don't know. She had a lot of options, and she chose one of the worst.
Truly one of the worst. Like at this point, I felt so bad for Matt.
Yeah.
And this takes us to Thanksgiving. Matt, like they always make up. They always end up making up. But Matt doesn't have plans for Thanksgiving, and obviously Vinny and Liza's family's going to get together. So Vinny wants to invite Matt to spend the holidays with them. Liza is literally texting him being like, say no.
Yeah.
But he accepts to kind of like push her along.
Yeah.
And so they are spending an entire weekend together.
Where they have
And
to pretend that they're not obsessed with each other in front of Vinny, who's the only person who gives a shit about whether they like each other or not.
and their plan is so dumb too, because it's like when people are obsessed with each other, you can like immediately tell.
Yeah.
If you are any type of like, if you have any type of EQ.
Yes. You can tell.
Like
And it's also like they're just like, oh, we'll just be like, we're not talking. And that's also fucking weird. Like, you would just have a normal conversation. They don't know how to walk the line, essentially.
totally. And when they're in like private moments, Matt is like kissing and hugging her. So when they go to sleep, she's like pissed because she thought he was like crossing the line, and thinks he's way too casual about it.
Which I have to big time agree with Liza here, because what is he doing? Like, he is sneaking all this like very touchy feely making out stuff while they're in her mother's house with her brother there who doesn't want them to date, and he knows that. So he's like very I feel like he really disregards her experience during that. And then in the evening, as you said, he comes up to her room, like comes into her childhood bedroom to like snuggle with her. And because he's just like, I missed you. It's like, fucking grow up. And he's supposed to be sleeping in the basement. And she, I would say, gives in and is like, okay, fine, you can stay in here for a bit, but just like, don't, you need to leave by a really early hour because the kids get up. And there's no like exit from this room, basically. And he sets an alarm, but then he in the morning just turns it off and goes back to sleep, knowing the risk. So she has to basically cover his ass so that he can get back into the basement where he's supposed to be sleeping. It just he puts her in such a bad position here. I really hated this part.
It was so bad. You're right, because I felt bad for him up until this point. But then when he committed to Thanksgiving and they committed together to not telling their family, he needed to stick to that, and he didn't.
He did not.
And he basically, you're right, like forces her into this scenario because he cancels his alarms.
Yeah.
And they, what do you know, oversleep. Danielle's trying to wake them up, and they hate lying, but they have to end up making all these crazy lies up to get out of these predicaments.
Yeah. And Danielle is always there to save their butts, which is very nice of her. But I feel like she's a bit annoyed at this point with that.
Yeah, because I think she's like, okay, like Vinny would, yeah, maybe be mad at the outset, but like he's not going to like hold it against you
Yeah.
for the rest of your lives. Like, he's not that unreasonable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's like some tension because he's too casual about it and she's really like uptight about it. He feels really bad and she's mad at him. So she's like now giving him the silent treatment.
Yeah.
And Matt and Vinny go grocery shopping. But before they leave, Liza's mom stops him and basically is like, I know that you're dating Liza and I've known all along and I really like you two together.
Right. She's very supportive, which is nice.
Yeah. Which is cute. And it's like that is just giving you guys more of an excuse to confirm your relationship to the family.
Yeah. And not keep it hidden for any longer.
Yeah. Vinny and Matt go grocery shopping and Vinny notices Matt's upset and he thinks it's because of the holidays and his dad who passed away, which is like, that makes me feel so bad that he like was empathizing with Matt and didn't even fucking think of the dad at this point.
No, he's just upset about Liza. Yeah.
And Vinny's like, I've never seen Liza like so happy. Like, I'm so glad that she ditched Jeremy. And so, you know, all the pieces are falling into place and they get to dinner time and Vinny just like, I guess it was like an interaction that they had, but he starts like putting all the pieces together.
Yeah. He's like doing the math in his head and he's like noticing that something is going on, which is funny because he's kind of aloof up until this point, but then he is like, oh, something's happening.
It's like, something's happening. And Liza and Matt both make excuses to leave dinner so they can apologize to each other, which I thought was cute.
Mm-hmm.
And Liza's like, know what, you're right, we'll tell them at dessert tonight. And we're like, oh, finally, like sigh of relief, like
happening, we're gonna get our nice little happy ending here,
end of a saga, like just thrilled for them. But she cracks a bottle of wine and while she's doing that she cuts her hand and Matt's tending to it, and because they're probably taking so long, Vinny goes and finds them and immediately just punches Matt in the face.
Literally starts beating him up. And weirdly, it wasn't because he thought like, oh, now I'm like, no, they're together in this moment. He's thinks that Matt has hurt Liza. That's what he initially thinks, which is just like, why do you think that? Like, it's so confusing. It just makes no sense. Like that little diversion, I was like, why would they include that?
And why would you be friends with a person that you think would like hurt your sister in your family home? Like that was so irrational to me.
Yeah, it was so weird. But then that leads to him realizing, because I think I don't know, he calls her baby or something like that, where it's like, oh, now Vinny's realizing what's really going on, which is that they're together.
Yes, because I think then he's like, you heard her. No, you're just hooking up with her. Oh, no, you're like fully together.
Yes.
And he punches him again and then
slams him against the counter. He goes berserk in this moment, which I was stunned. I was stunned by this outcome.
Yeah, because we find out later on that he like really is fucked up his back, that he like has to take time off work. Like
Yeah, like he's really injured by this.
that's like such an underrated story. Like your brother hurt him so much that he needed to go pick up a prescription painkiller.
Like literally, he could have pressed charges for what he did. That was my takeaway from this scene.
That is so bananas. Like that is so wild.
Yeah.
And they tried to explain, and he's like, I love Liza. Like, and that's kind of the first time she's heard that. He's like, this isn't just like a fling. I'm not hurting her or anything like that. But he just doesn't listen. And he's like, you should leave. And the mom agrees with him, which I was surprised at this because I was like, but you like them together. So wouldn't you be like, Vinny, fucking take a walk around the
Yeah.
block?
Take a breath.
And yeah, take a breath and let's discuss this like adults.
Yeah. But basically, they all just decide everyone should leave this scenario and then revisit in the future, which
Yeah.
is fine.
Vinny talks a little bit more with Liza after everything's settled down and basically just says like that Matt is his only friend and he's scared that Liza will like take him away from him. Did you think that was like a valid excuse?
Um, I thought that some of it was okay. Like, I understood why he was mad that they've been lying about it for so long because Matt has been spending a lot of time with Vinny also. So I
Right.
did understand that part. I do think it's a bit childish to think that, like, he couldn't be friends with Matt, or like Matt couldn't be friends with Vinny and also date Liza, which just goes back to the very initial part of the story, which is him making a rule that, his sister's not allowed to date someone, which actually has nothing to fucking do with him, and she should just make that decision. So I think it's valid that he's upset about the lying, but I do not think it's valid that he's upset that they're together.
Yes, yes. Yeah, 100%. The deception, yes.
Mhm.
Them dating, she's a grad student and
Yeah.
an adult woman. Like,
If anything, I actually think Liza should have been more mad at him in this moment and been like, well, we
yes.
wouldn't have had to do this if you would have just actually allowed me to have my own autonomy to make decisions. But instead, you've decided that you're like making these decisions for our family and trying to control my life. And if you had simply not done that, we wouldn't have had to lie to you. And this could have been all above board. But you created a system
Yes.
that didn't allow for that.
Yes, 100%. I totally agree that like lies, obviously they can be like malicious and stuff like that, but I think a lot of times people lie because they're trying to save themselves or another person from
Mhm.
like discomfort and like awkwardness or like whatever, and like they basically were like forced to do that.
Yeah. And they were like, well, we both care about Vinny and we don't want to hurt him. And so we're going to try this out since he won't permit, in quotations, us to be together. Let's just try it out without bringing him into it. And if it doesn't work out, then we just will continue on and it will be fine. And if it does, then we can loop him in. And I'm like, that's fair. Like, it's thoughtful, actually.
Yeah, that's actually reasonable when you think about it. I think the parts that tripped them up was that they just kept bumping into people that made them lie even more and hurt each other's feelings. But you're right, that's actually, I think, very reasonable to be like, okay, yeah, we both have a connection to this person, so let's just see how it is. And if it's serious, if it's something worth mentioning, we can mention it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Liza leaves Long Island and heads to Matt's place. She can let herself in because she does have a key to his place, which
Again, at
another
like, I don't know, how long are we? 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in? Crazy.
crazy times. But they make up and they spend the weekend together. And this is where shit hits the fucking fan. 3 weeks pass, so we're into December now, and Matt gets a phone call from the doctor that they bumped into at the party. And I guess he could see through their lies and knew that it was actually Matt and Liza dating, and he asks for her next of kin information. He basically obviously because of HIPAA laws can't explain what's going on. I was like, well, then how could you ask for next of kin? But like
Yeah,
the
they kind of
details,
love that one a little bit.
yeah, the details don't matter. But he implies like that she had like an accident and that she's in the hospital and where he could find her.
Yeah.
So he races to go see her and she's asleep, but he looks at her charts and finds out that she fainted because and got a concussion because she is pregnant.
Pregnant, as if.
I like she's 6 to 7 weeks pregnant, so the first time that they had sex, they got
That's
pregnant.
insane.
Yeah,
That's a sign
yeah.
from the universe. I'll tell you that much. If she's
Yeah.
doing those things.
100%. Yeah. 100%. I was shocked. I thought she would got into a car accident and then Vinny went to go help her and then he realizes he made a mistake and then they like live
Yeah.
happily ever after.
But
Not the
no,
baby.
not the baby though. Insane. And during all this time, while all this is happening and over the last couple weeks, Vinny is not talking to either of them. Vinny is just completely shut both of them out. And so when he gets this call about the next of kin, he's like trying to contact him, and Vinny's like declining his calls because he has
Right.
been. And he's like,
Right.
but this is like serious, which I always am thinking, why not just text him? It's not about the relationship, but your sister's actually in the fucking hospital. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. Like then just or leave a voicemail like text to speech or what or like
yes, yeah,
the text
anything.
voicemails. So Vinny arrives at the hospital and apologizes to Matt, and Liza wakes up, and Matt and her decide to keep the baby, have the baby together. And at this point, Vinny doesn't know, but then he's like, oh, yeah, like, so what other tests do you have to get done before you're going to leave the hospital because you have a concussion? You should probably get a CT scan. And then they're like, oh no, we can't do a CT scan. And then he's like, oh my God,
Because
you're
you're
pregnant?
pregnant. So many doctors in this book.
So many doctors. Truly, they do live happily ever after this. They celebrate Christmas together. Danielle is expecting her third kid with Vinny, so they'll have like cousins at the same age.
Mhm.
And Matt proposes to her, bought the ring when he bought the necklace from his
Which
mom.
again was like 2 weeks in.
Like, I just didn't need that tidbit. Like,
No. And also, like, do they need to be engaged at this point? Like, they're having a baby together already. Like, there's no, like, you're gonna be together. There's no rush on a proposal. Why are we doing this?
truly, it's also like, so I was gagged at the pregnancy thing.
Yeah.
And then I flipped to the epilogue because, again, they live happily ever after. And we find out that Liza graduated probably like summa cum laude and
Yeah.
like, like superstar student. But because of COVID, they had a graduation ceremony like over Zoom.
So they're like all watching her cross the stage, which is like very cute. Did we need that? I mean, this was published January 1st, 2021. So I think if I were an author, I probably also would have been thinking about like, how do I make this realistic? But I hope that at this point in 2024, any authors who are listening, we don't need the code. Like, we know it happened, just let it go. We don't need that in the fantasy books.
We truly don't. It just took me out of it so much because you're right. I feel like you're right. That means she would have been writing it during 2020. And I feel like, especially during that year, we were so like COVID
Yeah.
focused that it would make sense that she would want to include that into her book. But I'm like, but if you want a book that like stands the test of time,
You just don't do that.
just
It was
do
too early
not
for
do
her,
that.
I guess. But yeah, a very neatly tied up with a bow on it ending. It's cute.
Yes, it was cute. Also, I talked so much shit about it. I really had a good time
I
listening to
loved
it.
it. I want to say I loved it. I have so many complaints, but I loved the book and I loved talking shit about it. Like
Me
that's part
too.
of the enjoyment. So I will
Totally,
read another
totally.
book from her for sure.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely. Okay, let's wrap up with some roundtable discussion. Our internet investigation. This is our cursory peruse of the Internet of Things You Need to Know. Honestly, nothing really too much on this book because it's such a like indie release. But I will say check out Caroline's Instagram because she has some really cute graphics of Matt and Liza. And then again, check out the recipes if you want like a fun Italian dinner this fall.
It's a good idea. And I'm gonna kind of keep my eye out for more seasonal themed books in the future as well.
Me too, absolutely. Yeah, that was it. I was like, I get why people do this, but I didn't get how much it would add to the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our Wonder Whys, these are unanswered questions for the listeners. This bugs me about if you're reading a book that's dual POV and the couple is hetero, like the man's POV is always like ogling.
Yeah.
Like it's just always immediately like, yeah, she looked so good in her jeans and like getting out of the car, I was like leering at her and stuff. And I'm always
Yeah.
just
It's
like,
like you shouldn't admit that. Like
yeah, like, no, literally. And like, I don't know. It always just seems, I don't know if it's like, is it a woman writing what she thinks would be happening in a guy's head? Is this really what's happening in a guy's head? Like it just is always so cringe to me.
I don't know. We're gonna need a man to weigh in on this, which is
Yeah.
something I say often, but in this particular instance,
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
to.
I've literally never said that, but we'll take it on this one. My other question was, what do Liza and Matt have in common?
We have no idea. We have no idea, other than they both like the Rolling Stones, and I think
Yes,
that's it.
yes.
And food,
Yeah.
but like,
And
who
food.
doesn't?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Rolling Stones, that's a good one. And then, yeah, I guess family values.
I guess I feel like Matt wants that, but he doesn't have it with his mom, who he's estranged from. Although at the end of the book, they do say that his mom is now trying to get connected because there's the grandbaby involved.
Yes,
That's
yes.
nice.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's
that's
a little
good.
bit of a found family for Matt, which is
Yeah,
nice.
but I really don't think they have that much in common otherwise. But I think
No.
we also don't really know that much about their interests from the book. I don't know.
No, we didn't really hear much outside. We didn't even really hear about her like grad school or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't even really know. Like we know it's like psych, right? But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
quite wrong.
Okay, our grapes and grumbles, these are nitpicky problems we have with the book. We went through a lot of them, but this is really nitpicky. I hate when people are like she was like, I've got some lady balls, or like that person has lady balls for like sticking up for someone or whatever. I was like, that is like horrendous.
Yes, I agree. And the next one that you have here, which I think kind of combines for me some other things, which is about how she talks about Liza's team Spike when they're talking about Buffy, right? There were a few moments where I just felt like I was taken out of the story because she's like talking to the reader in a bit more of a like casual, like kind of breaks the fourth wall way. And I just like don't love that. I'm
Same.
like I think in one there was one example, I should have written it down, but she says, as you can imagine, I was blah blah blah. And I'm like, me?
No.
Imagine? Like I'm reading
Yeah.
the book. Like you tell me what's going on. I don't know. It's got a bit of a weird voice sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, like kind of going in and out of first person
Mhm.
present tense and then like kind of not
Yeah.
past tense, but like, and also just like being Team Spike is an outrageous take, I feel
Yes.
like.
Crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wrote this down, but the pacing of the book,
Yeah, which I think kind of comes back to that, like just instantly obsessed with each other. Like he sees her covered in vomit for zero point 0.3 seconds. She comes back down in her nice new outfit, and he's like, I will worship this woman. This is it for me. I'm like, is that what happens? I don't think that that's what happens. Like,
No.
I don't know. It just seems weird to me. And then just like how intense he is about pursuing her at the pumpkin patch. Like, don't get me wrong. I love it and I love that for her. It's great, but it just seemed kind of weird. And then the necklace thing, as I mentioned, seemed way too early to me. So it feels fast.
I know, and I actually wonder now if because she wanted it set in the fall, maybe that actually was a hindrance to the book. Because
Maybe.
I wonder if they had it just like span a year or whatever, if
Right.
it would have seemed a little bit more realistic.
Or if we could even have them meet just a little bit earlier of like they actually reconnect at like 4th of July, like as like the starting point, and then they like see each other again in mid to late September, which you could also do pumpkin patch at that time. Like it is, you don't
Totally.
have to reach till October for that. And that could be sort of the continuing, but it just feels like they really go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah. And I was even thinking instead of him proposing at Christmas, why not like Valentine's Day or something like
Yeah,
that?
right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, they talk so much shit about Halloween being childish.
Yeah, like,
That, like, do you not like joy? Like,
yeah, like grow up. We're all allowed
yeah.
to have fun. I love Halloween.
I love Halloween. I love dressing up. I love the candy. I love everything about the season. That
Yeah.
was fucking shocking to me.
Yeah. Weird take for a fall themed book.
Yeah, yeah, to like be like it's not a Halloween party, it's an NYC icons party.
Yeah, like just say it's a Halloween party and that's the theme for the con.
Yes,
That's
yes.
okay. It's
Cuz I
both.
was like it's not like they were like, "Okay, we're going to have like an alt Halloween party where we do nothing for Halloween." They just did Halloween
Yeah.
and called it something different.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
funny.
Barbara's just really pretentious. I don't know.
Yeah, you wrote this down, him crawling into her childhood bed. I would have been like, murderer!
Like I
like,
really did not like that part. I really felt like he was pushing her way too hard and just
yeah.
it's so weird that it's like in her house and just the stakes are so high, but it doesn't feel like they're high in a fun way. Like an alternative to that could have been she sneaks down to the basement and then she goes back up because she would have had a bit more control there, I think. And it doesn't require him to be like sneaking into her bedroom. And she talks in the book about how even though she was engaged to Jeremy, he also was never allowed to sleep in her room. And
Mm,
so, you know, if the mom were to catch them, then the goodwill that he does know he has with the mom at that point would be gone.
yeah.
And the whole thing with Vinny being like, oh, well, he just wants to like sleep with you or whatever, he would be essentially proven right if Vinny were to find them. Like, it just seems the consequences there were so high for no reason.
Yeah, and he went back on his word. Like his
Yeah.
word was that they weren't going to tell them and they both agreed to that. And yeah, you're right. Like I wonder if she snuck down into his room and then he was like, "I really want to tell them like this isn't sitting right with me." Like
Yeah.
and pushing her in that way. Like cuz I agree that or like I think she did need a push, but I
Yes.
agree that the way that he did it was not like tactful at all.
No, it just felt a bit icky. I don't know.
My last gripe and grumble, if you don't have any more either, is just that sometimes it's annoying to me when it's always like the cute, insecure female main character that, like, it referenced like a few times, like, oh, she doesn't like her curves, but Matt does, and stuff like that. Or like, Danielle looks perfect, like, even when she wakes up in the morning. And like, I just like it's such an annoying micro trope.
Right. Like, why do we need to include that?
Yeah, like why do they always have to be insecure, I guess. Is the I guess that's realistic. I think a lot of people, most people are insecure, but I'm like it she's so confident in like so many other ways that yeah, and it's just so common.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fair. It is a bit of an annoying trope. It also this just made you reminded me of another thing that I was gonna add in there, which has to do with Danielle, which there just were a lot, like multiple times throughout the story, we hear about how shitty of a cook Danielle is and how the mom like won't let her do anything in the kitchen. And I was just like, that is such a strange detail to include. I don't know. I don't know why they included that. It just was that weird for you?
Absolutely. And they were like, yeah, and she also doesn't want to teach her kids Italian.
Yeah, like how dare she? Like, okay,
Yeah.
Vinny can do it because he's the Italian one.
No, I know. I'm like, I'm sure she wants them to be bilingual, but
Yeah.
like, that's a lot to just expect of her when she's not even the Italian one.
Yes. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that part was a bit strange to me. Like they just were really putting her down and being like making fun of the fact that she wanted to have some American food at their Thanksgiving when they took more of an Italian take on Thanksgiving. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
why is this bad? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's bad either. Like, I feel like when you spend holidays with in laws, it's nice to like combine
Yeah, traditions or
traditions.
your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she just kept catching strays
She
from the
did.
mom.
She really did. Even though she's supposedly this like perfect sister-in-law with the two
Yeah.
kids who everybody loves, and she has to put up with Vinny being miserable and literally assaulting people. But
Yeah. Yeah, but
Danielle
she can't cook, so she's
can't
not
cook though.
not a good person. Like, my God. Okay, our sequel scoop. This is the tea on any upcoming sequel seasons or the general reception. The next book in this series, because it's a trilogy, the Seasons of Love trilogy, is Shall We Dance? And it follows Barbara. Okay, that's all. Do you have any final thoughts on Fall Into You?
Final thoughts on the book were overall, I had so much fun reading it, and it made me excited to get into some more romance novels. So hopefully it for the
Nice.
listeners too. I'm definitely going to be downloading Pumpkin Spice Cafe and Shall We Dance on my Kobo and getting into those in the next few weeks as we settle into autumn.
I love that. I love that. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you and anything else you want to plug?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram and on Spotify at Tiny Beanstalk. If you're looking for a little bit of music to go with your autumn vibes, I do have a cozy autumn playlist on Spotify, and it's received some pretty good reviews. All from my friends who are left, but
Yes.
it's pretty good. I've been working on it for years at this point, so it's curated.
Yes. Okay, I love that. Because I know this playlist and I will link it. Or maybe do I have your winter one maybe?
Yes, I have a winter one as well. I have a winter, I have Cozy Girl Autumn, and then I also have like a spooky season one, which is more specifically as we approach Halloween, like last week and a half of October. I really like a curated vibe, so
I love that. Okay, I'll put all of the links to those in the episode show notes so people can check them out.
sounds great.
Okay, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that's the story of Fall Into You. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Robin for joining me on today's show. Let me know if you liked the book and the episode, and maybe Robin and I will cover Shall We Dance this spring. If you want book visuals, if you want to see me podcasting, see what Robin and I look like, what our facial expressions are, etc., follow me on socials at Ready to Be Romanced on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. On Instagram, especially, I post book visuals, like if there's fan art or if it's a movie, like I'll post, or TV show, I'll post pictures from that. I'll also post music to like accompany your reading and clips from the podcast, as well as like TikToks and stuff like that. So it's super fun. I feel like it actually enriches these episodes so much. And you can join in on the conversation because I always post like little quizzes and Q&A. So if we had a question in this episode, like for example, I asked Robin, what would you dress up for the NYC Icons party? And I'll definitely post that on the Instagram stories and you can tell us which icon you would dress up as. I'm also trying to get my ratings and reviews up. So if you haven't already, please leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps the show find new listeners and let me know that I'm on track. In the review, tell me what book I should cover next. You can also suggest a book or leave a voicemail with a question or comment for a future episode via the links in the episode show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Our next episode is The Summer I Turned Pretty. Until then, happy reading for Ready to Be Romanced. I'm Tori. Goodbye.